Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest episode of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. The Maxon Brothers here with you. I'm Nate. That's Aaron.
Hello, everybody.
And we are continuing our journey through the Clash of the Champions. We are at Clash 10. It is February the 6th, 1990. We have moved into 1990. We've moved into the 90s, and we have moved into a new booker in WCW, which is obvious by some of what happens on the show and is going to really become obvious as the year 1990 rolls on. I think there's somewhat still of a committee behind the scenes, but clearly at this point, the man in charge is Ole Anderson.
Yes.
What was it? There was something I was going to say. Something else that has changed since the last time that we had a clash. Arn Anderson's run with the WWF is over. He is back in WCW pretty much for the rest of his career until WCW closes.
Yeah.
And from everything that I've ever known, Tully Blanchard was supposed to come along, but that did not happen because of a supposed failed drug test in the WWF.
Yeah. Supposedly, he didn't exit on the best terms with the WWF as Arn did, and he claims that they randomly drug tested him so he'd get fucked out of his money. Is what he said.
That I don't know that I believe that. I do know that I personally think that WCW overreacted.
Yeah.
To whatever they heard and should have just let Tully come in. How different how different are things if Tully comes back in 90? You know what I mean? Like as the 90s roll on, Tully Blanchard as part of WCW, does he like wind up with the Dangerous Alliance? You know what I mean? Like it's a fun what if. Like what if Tully does come back?
If he does, he might not even get a Dangerous Alliance.
Right.
They might have just kept it Arn, Tully, Ole, and Flair.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm talking about like Flair. I'm talking about Flair leaving. Yeah. If everything else,
he might not even wanted to leave.
Right.
All his buddies are there. You know, I don't know.
So, do you have songs and movies?
I have one movie because I couldn't find the number 2 movie. For some reason, I couldn't find the number 2 movie on February 6th, 1990. But the number 1 movie was a movie we already talked about. It was Back to the Future 2.
Okay.
So the number 1 movie. And the 2 songs are terrible. Well, I shouldn't say terrible. But the number 2 song is by a female group that was good in the 70s, and their 80s stuff was hit or miss. But it's All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You by Heart.
All right. Just as a side note, because again, it's one of those times where you're like, yeah, when are we ever going to bring this up again? If nobody has ever done so, once you're done listening to this show, or you can pause this show right now if you want to, if you're listening on a podcast app or something, head to YouTube and go watch from the Kennedy Center Honors when they were doing the Kennedy Center Honors of Led Zeppelin, and watch Heart do Stairway to Heaven. Fucking amazing. Anyway.
With Bonham's Kid on the drums.
Yeah.
They fucking killed it, man. Heart's a great band.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to preface that by saying I didn't want to knock them, but they're kind of like Aerosmith, where it's like, man, their shit in the 70s is so much better than what they did in like the 80s or 90s.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
that's all I was saying. And the number one song is by another female artist that she's only got like 2 or 3 songs that I like, but she's kind of the Michael Jackson of female artists.
Madonna?
So I think you probably, yeah. And do you want to guess the song?
All right, Madonna, early 90. We've gone past Like a Prayer at this point.
Which is her best song?
I would I would agree with that. Hmm. Too long of a pause, Nate. I don't know.
It's in Vogue. That song sucks.
Oh. Strike a pose.
Strike a pose. Yeah, it's that fucking song sucks. That's the number one song. So as the Horsemen were pulling up, they were like, "Man, did you like Back to the Future too?" Fucking loved it. Well, Vogue was playing.
Ric Flair told some young lady in the crowd, "All I want to do is make love to you."
He told all the young ladies in the front row that.
So yes, it is Clash of the Champions 10. February 6th, as I said, 1990. We are in Corpus Christi, Texas, at the Memorial Coliseum, and it's got one of the more, at least in my brain, one of the more classic Clash of the Champions intros with that Wild West music and the silly like shoot 'em up.
Yeah,
little characters kept popping up out of the house or out of the buildings and stuff, and it's memorable. It's a memorable intro to a Clash of the Champions.
yeah. They packed 3,000 people into this building. I don't know what the capacity of a Memorial Coliseum was, but yeah, they had 3,000 people. And like you said, it's a memorable video. It's not great, you know, kind of hokey, but it's still whatever.
Let me see here, looking it up. The Memorial Coliseum was an arena in Corpus Christi, Texas, that had a capacity of about 3,000. So,
all right, so yeah,
they
there
sold
you
it
go.
out.
They sold that bitch out. Good for them.
Jim Ross and Jim Cornette back on commentary for this show.
Yeah,
and
it's their best team at this point, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And it's good for some of the talent that these two guys are on commentary too. You know,
Yeah.
You know, you get into like we're gonna have a Mick Foley match later on, and Jim Cornette spends that he didn't give a shit that he was in the ring with Bill fucking Mascaris. He spends that entire match getting over the idea of Cactus Jack.
Yeah.
But anyway, JR and Cornette are on commentary, and he's got your gimmick right off the bat, Aaron. It's Tuxedo Terry Funk.
That's what I said. I put in my notes. Terry Funk checks in on broadcast, and guess what? He's wearing a fucking tuxedo.
He even calls himself Tuxedo Terry Funk.
Tuxedo Terry Funk. Every WCW fucking show in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s had to have a fucking tuxedo. At first, when we started doing this shit, I thought I was like, Nate thinks I'm full of shit. He thinks I'm insane, but he's gonna start noticing it.
Well, I definitely did because apparently I wrote it down. And I made an emphasis to write it down on my notes.
Always a tuxedo.
And Terry does great Terry Funk. Like the funny thing about Terry Funk when he's a broadcaster or a commentator, if it was anybody else, you'd be like, this guy sucks on the mic as a commentator. Not as a promo, but as a commentator. But when it's Terry, so it's fine. Like he's like, hey, yeah, go get your 45s, go get your 22s, go get your because we're gonna be shooting at you. Like he's just rambling, but it's Terry. So like, if it was anybody else, you'd be like, Jesus Christ, what is this guy talking about? And then, unless you had something else on that,
Mhm.
back to Gordon Soley in the locker room, and he brings in the Road Warriors. They're talking about they're going to have their match coming up with the Skyscrapers on this show. And then we get our first match.
And it's Samoan Savage with the
Big Kahuna.
with the little humper
Oliver Humperdinck.
versus little humper versus Dr. Death Steve Williams. And I gotta tell you,
You're going to talk about the ambulance thing?
that fucking video is so stupid.
It's one of the dumbest. The ambulance video with Dr. Death is one of the dumbest things.
I know we're not supposed to use the R word anymore in 2025, but it was R worded. And he's supposed to be Dr. Death, but he wants to save people. And I don't know if it was, but was that Tom Zank that he put on the gurney and put in the ambulance?
I thought it was. I guess I didn't look close enough. I figured it was just some enhancement guy or something. I guess honestly,
It might have been.
I didn't even look. I didn't. There's so many guys in the brown.
A lot of random wrestlers in 1990 look like Tom Zank.
Yeah, that's what I say.
I'm
There's
like, I was like, is he saving Tom Zank from cardiac arrest?
Well, whoever it is, he carries the guy into the ambulance, puts him on a stretcher.
Which, if you're an EMT, the last thing you would do would be randomly picking up an injured person and throwing them into the ambulance.
And he's not even just an EMT; he's a fucking doctor.
Yeah. You wouldn't randomly pick up the person and throw him in there. You would put him on the stretcher. Like, this guy might have a broken fucking neck. You don't know.
Could have a concussion.
Yeah. And then when they drive away, like, he looks out of the fucking back window like a fucking moron. It was so fucking bad.
And
one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
I think he's supposed to be saying to the hospital quick, but it sounds like he says to the hospital quack.
I don't fucking know. It is bad. But the match is really good.
It is. And these videos, I think if I remember correctly, these kind of they use these kind of videos for some of the talent for a little bit, but not too long. But yeah, it's really goofy. You know, it's just, I don't know, it's just goofy. It's like I always say, Vince McMahon was much better I know people like to shit on cartoon, but if it was going to be something cartoony, Vince was so much better at doing cartoony than anybody else. Else?
It was Jim Herd trying to say we need our talent to be like the WWF, you know?
Yeah.
Like if Vince would have had him, I guarantee he wouldn't have been slamming people in the ambulances and cutting the shitty promos on a video. You know what I mean?
Yep. Nope. It wouldn't have been cheap like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Aaron said, this is a good match. I put down here is two big bruisers in the ring clubbing away at each other for a good 10 minutes. Woman said she was going to be here, and she's here. They show woman at ringside. And the only thing I found odd, I guess, I don't know what, but Dr. Death just wins with a backslide.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, they kept it simple. It wasn't terrible. It was just a good match, and so Samoan Savage is replacing Samu, which I'm sure Samu probably demoned himself out of WCW at this point. But yeah, I enjoyed the match, and I'll never get mad at watching two big fuckers like that just smack the shit out of each other.
Mm-hmm. After this, I told Aaron before we went on the air, I tried to find a good quality copy of this wild thing rap for Wrestle War on YouTube just so I could play it on the show. And I couldn't find a good quality of it. And I didn't want to go back through the fucking Peacock. It wasn't worth going back through the Peacock version and finding it just to play it.
Yeah.
It's another awful WCW video. You know, this time it's
still better than
it's coming.
Everybody telling me they're coming.
Yeah.
But it's still inappropriate. And then
there's going to be lots of rapping coming up soon when PN News shows up.
the next thing coming up is one of my favorite segments in wrestling history. But what kind of upset me was, did you notice what happened on the network?
I guess I didn't.
Them overdubbing the music.
Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't even. Sometimes I'm desensitized to it, I think, because I'm used to it.
Well, what they did by overdubbing the music was cutting out the commentary. Because when it was about to happen, I was getting ready to be like, oh, I can write down, well, there's the old funker right now. And it didn't happen. I'm like, oh, there's the old funker right now. Got cut out. And I'm like, well, maybe they cut that out because they thought maybe it sounded inappropriate or whatever. But
I forgot that is where JR said that.
And then when I was like, oh man, there's the old funker out right now. I was like, oh man, they cut that out. But then as they were coming down the ramp, I remember Cornette talking about like the different looks of the Horsemen.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, Sting, he's wearing all black like Johnny Cash. And there's Ric Flair, and he's super flamboyant. And there's the Andersons, and they're dressed serious. Like, all of that shit got cut out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it all got muted by the shitty music that they put over it. But it doesn't ruin the segment. But I'm like, oh, man.
The little things.
They just completely cut out JR and Cornette. But the segment we're going into is one of my favorite segments in wrestling history.
Yes. I actually wrote down here, I love this segment. I always have. It's one of the best TV segments in the history of wrestling television. And it is because of a few things. It's because obviously the story. Now, it's funny because it's kind of because I said Ole came in as Booker, so Ole's putting a button on anything anybody else was booking, so he's pretty much like, this whole Ric Flair babyface bullshit's over with. And you know, we've chronicled how Sting and Ric Flair were helping each other against Gary Hart's villains and et cetera, et cetera. So Ole's putting a button on this, and people can say what they want to about Ole Anderson. But as far and some of Ole Anderson, if I go back and watch Ole Anderson wrestle, maybe some of Ole Anderson wrestling isn't even my jam.
It's great though. It has such good psychology.
Yes, as I was about to say, as a psychologist and especially as a promo, one of the best to ever do it. And the funny thing about Ole was a guy whose stuff, obviously. Okay, I'm 46. So at 1990 here, I'm fucking 12 years old, 12 years old. As we always talk about on the show, we discover things as we get older. And I didn't really honestly get into Ole Anderson until I was in my late 20s, until YouTube, and I could, and just and videos and stuff that you could get that I could go back and watch old shit and things
Yeah.
like that. And watching like him in Georgia and watching him in Mid Atlantic and watching, and then you realize, wow, this guy's a fucking amazing, amazing.
Yeah, it's like I've always said, like sometimes the biggest asshole might be the most talented guy in the fucking room.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But it's like you can't be an asshole and not be funny.
Not be funny. But yeah,
And
but,
he's an
oh,
asshole and he's funny. Like with his shoot interviews and stuff like that.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But like in this segment, I love like right off the rip, he's just like, Sting, you're out.
Yeah, yeah. You don't fuck around.
And like he's not even like, hey man, if you give up the title shot, we'll let you stay or whatever. He's like, you're out.
To do it justice, if you listen to the show, you've seen this, but for someone maybe that's younger that's listening that hasn't seen it, to do it justice, go back and watch it, because it also is a great lesson in psychology, and it's also just a great lesson in, like I said, Ole's picking up someone else's story and changing it, but he's able to weave his story with that older story, and I love the story of me and Arn came back. Essentially, it's, Arn and I were gone, and Flair, we don't know what the fuck he was doing hanging out with you,
And
but
that's what I was gonna say too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
it's okay.
but like the Andersons were gone, so Flair like turned a babyface,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Oh, I'm Ric Flair. I'm happy now. I'm liking everybody." And as soon as the Andersons come back, he's a dick again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because his cousins are back, and they're like, "Oh man, kind of became a pussy a little bit."
And I love the story of, I love the fact that they did work Flair being a little conflicted into it,
Yeah,
like like Ole's like, we tried to take him out. Flair gave us the sign, so we let you live. And then a second time, Flair gave us the sign, so we let you
yeah,
live. And I
like
love the expression, "We let you live." We didn't
yeah,
fucking
like
kill you.
yeah. We came back, and Flair brought us back because he wanted us to take you out, and then for some reason we don't understand why you saved him, and then at Starcade we came out and he wanted to beat your ass. And Flair gave us the high sign, and now you've accepted this title match. And we wanted to take you out there too, but Rick was like, "Nah, nah, let's let's give him an opportunity to back out."
But you're
So
right.
we gave
You're right.
you,
You're right. I do love how you're absolutely right. I do love how, even though he's telling him, we're going to give you a couple hours, Flair's bought you some time. But I do love how, like, you're right at the beginning. He's like, first of all, you're not a horseman anymore. Like,
yeah,
he's
you're
like,
out, man.
you're out. You're fucking
You
out.
were out. Fuck you. Like, we'll give Rick the fact that we're not gonna kick the shit out of you. That's fine. But you are out.
That is not for debate. Yeah.
Like that's not for debate. You're not out, out. You're out, out, out. Like get the fuck out of here. And I love the fact that Flair was like, trying to push Arn off or push Ole off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this might be a dumb um, thought or whatever, but I love the fact that the segment itself like was thought out by Ole or whatever, but production wise, it didn't feel pre-produced.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now when you watch wrestling, if Arn would be cutting this promo, like the camera would be on his face, and there'd be
Right.
like front cuts and this, that, and everything. When Ole is chewing out Stang, his back is to the camera.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like he's not looking at the hard camera and cutting the promo. He's just looking at Sting, and Sting's like, "Oh, what the fuck, man?" I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but it's a great fucking segment. And then Ole says, "You got 2.5 hours. Talk to the promoter. Talk to Jim Ross. I don't give a fuck who you talk to. Right now, I want to kick your ass. Arn wants to kick your ass right now, but we're gonna walk away." And the minute Ole goes to walk away, Sting grabs him. And the minute Sting grabs him, it's not even to attack him, it's to talk to him. The minute he puts his hands on Ole, Flair's just
Flair
like,
pops
God
him.
damn it.
Yeah, Flair
And Flair
pops him.
pops him.
I
Because he
tried to
hit,
give you
he
some time.
touched him.
I tried
He
to give you
touched him,
some
man.
time.
And that was one of my favorite things about the Horsemen was they do that shit sometimes.
Yeah,
Where
they'd
like
argue
one
amongst
guy
each
in the they'd argue amongst each other, and or one guy would like another guy in the group, but the minute you touched one of them, all of them were on him.
other. Hmm.
The Horsemen was such a great fucking group, and I know there were like lesser incarnations of them, but that's what I always liked about them was you'd separate them,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, they were still like a tight knit group. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, this is a fantastic
I
segment.
didn't mean to ramble too much.
No, that's okay. And we are going, and we're not going to talk about it now because I want to use it as a point. I want to use it as a conversation when we talk about it when it comes up in a Clash of Champions. There is a point. There is a point, and I'm just going to say this. I want to see if you agree with me when we get to it. But there's going to be a point when we review one of these shows in the future where, to me personally, there never should have been another Horseman that jumped the shark. But I don't want to discuss it now because I want to wait.
Okay.
But yeah, this segment's fantastic, and it sets up shit for later, and it's setting up, a story for the future. And like I said, you're seeing the change of the guard with the Booker. Ole's taking over, telling his stories, and there's going to be
Jim
some
Ross
stuff.
is pissed off.
Yeah, there's going to be some stuff as we go on through Ole's reign here, where I am of two minds sometimes on Ole. Because there's Ole has the potential for greatness, and Ole also has the potential to be his own downfall. And that's also the same way I feel about Bill Watts. There's a lot of people that are so Bill Watts that Bill Watts can do no wrong. And then you watch some of the stuff and you're like, yeah, Bill Watts can do some wrong. But anyway.
Dusty's the same way, obviously,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And other than Bill too. It's like, what did Ole, Dusty, and Bill have in common as bookers?
Besides gigantic egos.
Yeah. Besides that,
They're
they
also
put themselves
wrestlers.
on. Yeah, they put themselves on TV. You know, whether they're working, commentating, doing whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But sometimes it
And
results in funny. Like when Bill
it
Watts gets
does.
obsessed with that Cat Sebulbus guy or whatever.
Yeah.
Cheat
I mean,
down
that's
in.
all good. No good, goddamn,
I think it's
whatever.
Cat Sebulbus or something. Cat
I
Sebulbus
don't know.
down in Tulsa. I don't know.
Like,
Some
who
guy
the fuck are you talking about?
cheated him on a fucking car deal or something. But anyway,
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah. I mean,
I got a national TV show. I'll put this guy on blast.
yeah. Or he'd just be talking about rant. Like there'd be a match going on, and he'd be like,
Talk
"Oh
about the
yeah,
oil crisis.
and oil prices and fucking meanie." Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, oh, yeah, and then down there by on Route 66 and 69. They got a great deal on a 79. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? But what they all had in common was that they put themselves on TV and wanted to put themselves over and say what you want to say about Vince. But from WrestleMania 1 until the screw job, what did Vince do?
No, he put his talent over. And even after he became an in-ring talent, he always got his comeuppance. He always
I
put the
know,
talent in.
and I get that. Like he always put the talent over. Like he never got the one up on the people. But from WrestleMania 1 to before he put himself in there with Brett, he wasn't the focal point of the show.
Right.
You know what I mean? He was a promoter, but he was like, I don't even want you to. I like Bill wanted you to know that he was the promoter. Yeah, that type of thing and whatever. But I don't know if I'm babbling, but I'm just saying.
The next match on this show,
Yeah,
Brian Pillman and Tom
is
Zink, the Z-Man. It's funny because it says Flying Brian and Z on the screen against the Mod Squad.
the Mod Squad fucking sucked.
Spike and Basher.
I didn't even remember their names. Like literally in my notes, it says Z-Man pins the fat one.
For those of you that might not know, just a little trivia note. I don't know if there's people that know or don't know, but when you watch the Jim Crockett or the JCP shows, Mac and Jim Jeffers gain a bunch of weight and they become the Mod Squad.
Yeah, they sucked.
But all I wrote down about this is through the match, Brian Pillman takes the sell job role to get the hot tag to the Z-Man. I did like the ending sequence with Pillman drop kicking Z-Man or drop kicking whichever one of the Mod Squad so he couldn't break up the pin.
That was the fat one.
The fat one. Pillman and Z-Man win this matchup. Not a lot to say about that.
Other than Z-Man pins the fat one, my only other note is Jim Cornette's joke about Brian Pillman. Did you catch it?
I don't think so because I didn't write it down. So
He said Brian Pillman's first idea for a career before wrestling was to become a nude model, but after they took the pictures
oh yeah, he's
and
underdeveloped.
took him to the red room or whatever, or the dark room, he was underdeveloped.
Yes, I did. Now that once you started in with the joke, I was like, oh yeah, I did laugh at that when I was listening.
And Jim Ross was like, "Come on, man!
Come on, man!"
Yeah, he was like, "Come on, man!" Yeah, Jim Ross made a little dick joke about Brian Pillman. I'm like, that's funny.
The next matchup, if you've ever read Mick Foley's autobiography,
Can I say something real quick though?
no, sure.
Before we talk about the match, when they put up Cactus Jack Manson's logo, it looked like a law office, like graphic. Like it was like just block letters, Cactus Jack Manson. I'm like, what the fuck? Like you would think they'd like do it like scribbly or crazy, whatever, but it's like, no, it was Jack Manson. And looked like the welcome to the law offices of Cactus Jack and Manson. But anyway.
Speaking of which, so this guy calls a law office, right? It's the law office of Schwartz, and Schwartz.
Yeah.
Guy answers the phone and goes, law office of Schwartz, and Schwartz. And he goes, yes, can I speak to Mr. Schwartz? He goes, actually, Mr. Schwartz is out to lunch right now. Oh, okay. Well, can I speak to Mr. Schwartz? Actually, Mr. Schwartz is in a meeting. I apologize. Oh, well, hell, can I speak to Mr. Schwartz? And he goes, Mr. Schwartz is actually on vacation. He's on a golf trip this week. The guy goes, all right, then. Can I speak to Mr. Schwartz? Speaking. Anyway. Yes, the match here is infamous for many reasons. All of them being Mick Foley's book. Because Mick Foley goes into great detail, and I'm not going to recite any of it. Read it. Read the book yourself. Read the story yourself.
Notes, man.
But the one thing I will start out with is good old Gary Michael Caputa. Captain Jack Manson. Yep, totally calls Cactus Jack Captain, and you can see on Mick's face that he realizes.
He just got called Captain Jack.
See, he has like a half smile, half like, you son of a bitch. Like, was this a rib? Or I don't know. But yeah, he's totally introduced as Captain Jack Manson, even though the screen just said Cactus Jack Manson. And of course, his opponent is Mil Mascaras. You can understand why WCW brought Mil Mascaras in for this show in Corpus Christi, Texas. This is 1990. He is still a big fucking star in Mexico. He's still a big fucking star with the Hispanic crowd. I get it. But he did not want to do business with Captain Jack here.
And he fucking sucks. Mil Mascaras is... I know, like, you and Chad have talked to me about it before. We've talked about him, like, oh, he's this, that, and the other thing, and look at it by this, and Bruno Sammartino, he's the Bruno Sammartino of Mexico. Fucking Mil Mascaras sucked. And he's out here now on his tippy toes with half his gut sucked in and the rest of them stuck into his fucking zebra diaper. And that's literally what he wrote. He's out here on his tippy toes with his gut sucked in and the rest of his gut stuck into his zebra diaper. And this guy fucking sucks eggs. That's my note. This guy fucking sucks eggs. He's terrible. Like, and I know he does like his little spinny thing with his when he gets a guy in his fucking like scissor lock onto their head, and he's standing on his head and he spins around, and then he does this fucking Mil Mascaras is the shits, man. He sucks. And he's full of his own shit.
There's no doubt about that.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive.
That's unfortunate. But he's in the ring with, and you can tell me I'm wrong if you want, but he's in the ring with one of the greatest workers of all time.
Yes, and at this time even, everyone realizes that this is one of the best prospects to have a great future in the business as well.
Yeah, and this might be a stupid note, but like, you know, when we talk on the ECW podcast or whatever, like when we started talking about Sabu in like 94, when people started talking about him and being like, oh man, I've never seen anybody that did anything like this, you know? That was a Mick in like 90.
Right. Even 89. Like
89, 90, like,
yeah.
And kids being like, have you seen this fucking Cactus Jack Manson? He does some crazy shit. Crazy fucking shit. And Mil won't even take a fucking like backbreaker somewhat onto the floor for him. Like, Mil's a complete piece of shit in this fucking match. Like, every time I watch this match, I get more and more mad. And I've seen this match like 100 times. Like, every time I watch it, I'm just like, Mil
Yeah,
Mascaras
it's 5 minutes of Mil Mascaras avoiding taking any Cactus Jack spots of any consequence. And then of course the big one is the spot on the concrete, and I wrote down
messy plunge.
yeah, that Jack. I wrote down here that Cactus. Every time I watch this, that Cactus Jack spot always literally makes me go oof. Like when he hits the ground, like literally, I'm not even exaggerating. Like I'm always like oof. Jesus Christ.
And Cornette wants to say "Holy fucking shit,"
Yeah,
but he knows he can't, so he's just like, "Oh my god, like what the hell?" And I know he doesn't say what the hell, but like him and Jim are just Cornette. I know him and Jim Cornette and Jim Ross are like, "Holy shit," basically on commentary, trying to like put it over, but it doesn't even matter because I should say it doesn't matter, but it really doesn't because he does this like big, beautiful bump onto the concrete, and then Mel Mascaras like hits him with his shitty crossbody, and it's like 1, 2, 3. Mel Mascaras wins. And like you said, I totally get it. Mel Mascaras, it's a fucking border town to Mexico, and he's a big deal or whatever. But it doesn't fucking matter.
Mascaras beats Cactus Jack
For no reason whatsoever.
and then I wrote down here this next thing that gets mentioned on this show took me back to my childhood.
Missy Hyatt and Jim Ross?
When I would watch the main event on TBS and Missy Hyatt was Jim Ross's co-host, young me always thought Jim Ross has his hand on her butt.
Oh, why
when
wouldn't
when they were standing next to each other, it always looked like Jim Ross was a little bit sexually harassing Missy Hyatt when they were hosting the Power Hour together. But yeah, Jim Ross brings up that Missy Hyatt is going to be his new co-host on the main event.
And then she cuts a little promo, and I mean, if she was my co-host in fucking 1990, I'd probably have my hand on her butt too.
And then Cactus Jack fights with Wolf from the band.
So not only did he have to put over a fucking dildo named Mel Mascaras, he had to put over Wolf from the Tough Guys. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like in '99, he was probably like, well, you know, my head probably got split open, but at least I don't have to fucking work with this fucking dildo and Wolf.
I wrote down here next. At least they're getting all of Aaron's least favorites out of the way in 2 segments.
Yeah.
Because we had Mil Mascaras. Then in our next segment, we have Norman
the pervert
versus Kevin Sullivan in a Falls Count Anywhere match.
Did you hear what Jim Cornette called him? Great minds think alike. Did you hear what he said?
I don't think so, because I didn't write it down.
Yeah, Norman came out and he was throwing the teddy bears at the kids, and Jim Cornette even called him a child molester.
They tried to do.
He came out and he was like, "Oh yeah, Norman out here, he's a child molester." And Jim Ross was like, "Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Settle down. Come on, man. Settle down." And I love me some Kevin Sullivan as a mind, but I'm not even a huge, how do I say it? As like a mind and a promo, great. I'm not a huge Kevin Sullivan in the ring fan.
Me neither. Like, to me, I agree with you. Like, to me, Kevin Sullivan is a great mind, obviously a great mind for the business, and a fantastic promo a lot of the time. But
Like, I want him to be the
the
manager.
the only time I think Sullivan is a crappy promo is when he's trying, like when he tried like the shoot real life stuff with like Benoit and Jackie and that kind of stuff later on down the line when his ego, I don't know. But anyway, that's fucking, it doesn't matter because that's 6 years or 7 years from this. But as a mind, as a promo, great. As a wrestler, to me, very mediocre. Doesn't do much that really, captures the imagination. They try this silly thing before this match, like they're trying like almost like a George the Animal Steel thing from WWF Saturday Night's Main Event or something, where they have Norman at the zoo, and it's goofy.
That's stupid.
And
he's at the children's zoo.
The least said the best. This match, I and again, Aaron and I part ways on Mike Shaw. I actually don't mind Mike Shaw, but I didn't care for this. And it's a Falls Count Anywhere match. They fight into the back, then they fight into the women's restroom, and the pinfall happens, but we don't see it. And apparently Norman won in the ladies' room.
And he comes out with the toilet seat on his neck. And my note is that he probably sniffed it and then licked it.
Ew.
Because he's a pervert. Norman the pervert is your winner.
And then our friend Terry Funk is back with a Funk's Grill.
Oh my god, this is bad.
It is. It's like this is it's like, God, I love Terry Funk. And at this time I like Lex Luger, but this was not good.
But Luger's dressed like a 1990s kindergarten teacher. Like when I first saw him, I thought he had a tie on. So I'm like, oh, he's dressed like Paula Poundstone. But he didn't have the tie. So I'm like, he's not Paula Poundstone, but he's wearing like a 90s, like, it's not really a power suit. But you know what I'm talking about? Like, this is like when chicks were just starting to be like, we're like guys. So we're going to wear pants and dress shirts too. And it's like their shirt has no collar. So Luger looks like a fucking idiot. And Terry Funk is not doing a good job interviewing him. And Luger just rambles and says the same thing over and over and over. It's really bad.
I wrote down here 2 things about this. First, of course, Lex Luger's talking about everything that's going on with him and Sting. Of course, the classic. Instead of accolades, he says allocades.
Allocades.
All of my allocades during this interview. And probably because it was going off the rails and because somebody knew it wasn't good. I don't know if you noticed, but at the end, Luger got fucking cut off. Like he was just talking and then they both look at the camera kind of awkwardly, and Terry Funk's like, "Thank you, Lex," and then they
cut that shit.
Somebody was like, "Kill it."
Ole Anderson was like, "Stop it," and they were like, "What?" And he was like, "All of it."
So the next matchup here on the show, it's the Skyscrapers versus the Road Warriors. But of course, I mentioned on the last show, during that Road Warriors deal with the Skyscrapers on the last show is when Sid got injured. So he's been replaced since in the Skyscrapers with a guy. I don't know. This guy ever fucking do anything or?
No. He didn't really.
Yeah, it's
before you bring him up, there's the Road Warrior video, because they're trying to do little promo videos before the guys come out. and this is dumb. But I'm like, oh, here's the Road Warriors cutscene from Michael Jackson's black or white video. You remember that video
Oh yeah.
where, like, that's what I thought when I saw like them beating up the car. I'm like, this looks like the same set as black or white at the end where Michael's just dancing and like there's no music or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So then I watched that video, and that video is the most insane music video that has ever been made.
It is pretty
If you
fucking
watch
wild.
that video has everything. Like if you watch it at the beginning, it's got Macaulay Culkin dancing in his living room while George Wendt is mad about it. And he goes upstairs and he tells his kid to shut the fuck up. And then his kid shows up back downstairs with big speakers. And then he blows George Wendt out of the top of the house. And then George Wendt drops in Africa. And then Michael Jackson dances. Yeah, Michael Jackson dances with a bunch of Aborigines or whatever, and then they wind up on a soundstage, and a bunch of Native Americans show up, and then 15 people morph into each other into different races. And then Michael Jackson winds up in an alley by himself with no music. And he does all this Michael Jackson shit. And then he beats up a car and blows out a bunch of windows. And then he turns into a panther. It's like, what the fuck just happened?
And it's a cool fucking song.
It is.
So that brings up my question. What's your favorite music video of all time?
It might be that one.
Because I have two, and they're for different reasons.
I like that one, and then I like Steam and Big Time.
Yeah, Steam's great. That's a great video. Actually, my favorite music video of all time is it's the aesthetic, the colors, and the song all mixed together. And it is also my favorite song by this artist. But my favorite music video of all time is 7 by Prince.
Oh, that's a great fucking.
And then
great song and a great music video.
Or I'm sorry, 7 by because at that point he was the symbol, I think. But
yeah.
And then also That's the Way Love Goes by Janet Jackson, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You know what's a great video?
What's that?
And you might be like, what? I love the Loser video by Beck.
Oh yeah, it's a great video.
A great fucking video. When that old guy's like, he's like,
yeah,
it's like the most indie video at that time. But anyway, I don't know where the fuck
it's
we
the
got
skyscrapers. It's the skyscrapers versus the Road Warriors.
All right, and you said, oh, this guy. What did this guy ever do? You know. So I'm gonna ask you this.
Mm-hmm. Mean Mark is who we're talking about.
Yes, we're talking about Mark Calloway. I dig me some skyscrapers. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were a cool team. I thought the gimmick was cool. But who are the better ones? Is it Sid and Spivey or Callis and Spivey?
I actually like Mean Mark and Spivey, and I also think that the Skyscrapers is the best use of Dan Spivey ever.
More than Waylon?
Well, God damn it, you got me on that one. I didn't think of him as Waylon. Like, I was only thinking of him in like
the best he ever did.
You're right. No, no shit. Yeah. Other than Waylon, though, it's with him as Dan Spivey. This was the best thing for him.
Yeah, Golden Boy sucked. Like he shouldn't be a baby face.
Mm-hmm.
But I just
Yeah, I actually like Mark Calloway and Dan Spivey as a team, and I love Sid, but I don't know. I enjoy Sid better as a singles, I guess.
me too. Like I don't think Sid should be secondary to anything. And I'm not even saying when they were a team he was secondary, but it's like that guy shouldn't be part of an act.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, he should just be himself. Like he should just be whirly burling people fucking left and right. And um it's a note in the next show, but I'll just say it now. How fucking stupid was WCW at times when they had people on their roster and they got a guy that looks like Mark Calloway and they're just like, nah, we see nothing in you.
They did that a lot.
It's like, oh, you're 6'9", you look like that, and you can walk the rope. Yeah, in fact, we see nothing in you.
And that's one thing that for all the people that ever booked WCW and all the people that ever ran WCW, that is one thing you have to give Bischoff credit for. If he saw somebody was good and he saw somebody was hot, and I'm
He
not,
made sure he kept them.
and I know that there were times. I guess I can't give him that credit because he let Steve Austin go. But
Yeah, but at that time, if you're looking at it, the guy's hurt.
mm-hmm. All right,
He's
yeah,
been
we'll give him an
he's
alley oop on
injury
Austin.
prone. He's injury prone, and he's got a bad attitude.
And Bischoff did let. Okay, I'm gonna backtrack for just a second. We're getting in the fucking weeds here. Backtrack for just a second on my opinion there. Other than when it came to shit involving Hulk Hogan, because for some reason, whether it's money, whether it's contracts, whether it's because he likes smoking cigars with cool guys like Cornette says, he always kowtowed to Hogan. So I'm going to take Hogan out of the equation. But if you look at the undercard and if you look at everything else while he was running WCW when it was big until it started crumbling, the reason I'm saying what I'm saying is he saw Booker T was taken off. Okay, so Booker T got to take off. He saw Goldberg was taken off, so they put a fucking rocket, a fucking jetpack on Goldberg. I'm comparing him to the other bookers, like Aaron was saying. Like these guys had so much talent that they just let go away. Just fuck it, we don't need that. What a mean Mark. Yeah, whatever. He's a big tall guy. Whatever. We got plenty of big tall guys. Yeah, but do you have a big tall guy that can do that?
Yeah. And like Bischoff left, and then all of a sudden, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn, Chris Benoit, and Eddie Guerrero are just gone.
Yeah. Why?
And it's like Eric said, he's like, I would never let that fucking happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's your core, man.
But then on the other hand, and that's where Bischoff is like a testy subject, because on the other hand, he stood in front of Ric Flair and all that other talent and said, other than Hulk Hogan, nobody in this room ever drew a fucking or put an ass in a seat or whatever. That's just like there's with Bischoff, there's so much good and so much bad that like sometimes I come to his defense and then I have to back off because I'm like, well, I look like a fucking idiot because I'm defending this guy who said this or did this.
Yeah.
But anyway,
actually, what he said was nobody else in this room other than Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, and Randy Savage ever drew a dime.
While Ric Flair was in the room.
And Raven said everybody just looked at Ric Flair. And Ric Flair was just like, I don't know, man.
And then Vince McMahon was like, good point, Shelton.
Good point, Shelton. But the one thing I like about every guy, like Flair was like, oh,
fucking
fuck.
good point. That good point Shelton thing is one of my favorite stories. Anyway,
It's a good point, Shelton. But one of my favorite things is like Jim Cornette doesn't like, or how do I say it? Ric Flair might not like Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan says he got along with Roddy Piper, but Roddy Piper says he doesn't like Hulk Hogan. And there was all this Savage thing, and Jim Ross says this about this person, and that person says this about that person. But I love the fact that all of them fucking hate Vince Russo.
yeah, we all have our differences with each other, but what we can't agree on is Vince Russo's a fucking idiot.
He's a fucking asshole. Yeah.
So the match here,
Anyway,
Skyscrapers versus the Road Warriors. Of course, so as we said, it's Mean Mark and Dan Spivey versus the Road Warriors. These guys are just pounding the hell out of each other. And there's lots of chicanery. And of course, there's friction between Paul Ellering and Teddy Long because these two guys who barely have hair are going to be fighting over their hair.
Yeah. Two bald guys are going to have a hair versus hair match.
Yeah. Refereed by Telly Savalas. But essentially, the Skyscrapers get disqualified here, and essentially it just ends in a schmoz, with the Skyscrapers doing a beatdown on the Road Warriors, which, as we discussed last week, the Road Warriors are on their way. They're on their way to another venture here very soon.
Yeah. Not necessarily greener pastures, but they're going somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. The next thing we have here is the Steiner brothers versus Doom for the NWA World Tag Team Championships.
And it's the at least Clash of the Champions canon that we're talking about. It's the debut of my favorite fucking song.
The Doom theme song.
Yeah.
One of the great entrance themes of all time. I'm pretty sure we did a favorite entrance themes of all time episode at one point, and I'm sure that was
on both of our lists.
Yeah, absolutely. To this day, if I'm watching wrestling and I'm watching Doom and they come out, I'm bobbing my head a little bit to the Doom Doom theme. Yeah, I know every fucking note to that theme song. And it's one of the. This is also I think an Ole thing.
And here's why the fuck are these guys wearing that?
Yes, I wrote that down. I was like, Ole probably came in and was like, why the fuck do you have masks on these guys?
Nobody thinks it's Ranger Ross and Norman Smiley. Get the fucking masks off them.
This is not Coco Beware. Yeah. But yes, it's Steiners and Doom, title versus the masks. The match is really good.
He walked in, he was like, son, you got a panty on your head. But anyway.
I don't have a lot of notes on the match. I enjoyed the match. It was a good match. Doom loses and they have to unmask, and I like the fact they didn't lean into it too heavy, but JR and Cornette as Doom unmasks kind of hint to the fact of yeah, we all knew it.
Yeah, need to early on. Like Cornette's even like, look, we know. He basically says, look, we know who they are, but they're just wearing the masks for the psychological advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is funny is Ricky he's kind of a heel in the match itself, because it's supposed to be a mask versus title match, and just in the middle of the match, he's like, "Yeah, I'll just rip your mask off." You know what I mean? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but it's like you said, it's probably Oli walking in, going like, "Why do we have these guys wearing fucking masks
Absolutely.
that aren't even good masks?"
Yeah, they're not even like whole face masks.
Yeah, you don't even have them with full body suits. It's like everybody knows it. You get Ron talking. Like Ron Simmons has has one of the most distinctive voices in the
Yeah,
history
if you
of
think if you think about
the world.
if you think about Ron Simmons, it would be like putting a mask on Ernie Ladd
Yeah.
or James Earl Jones.
Right. Oh, we're gonna put a mask on Morgan Freeman.
Right.
Who is that man? I don't know who that
Who's
man
this
is.
masked manager of doom? Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Television Announcer. Oh, it's Ernie
I don't know.
Ladd.
I don't know who that man is, but his feet cover the ground that he walks
His
on.
feet, my feet cover the ground I walk on. God, I fucking love
Oh,
Ernie Ladd.
put a mask on Robin Williams. Yeah, stupid.
But
Well,
luckily, after this good wrestling match, now Doom is unmasked and they can just be Ron Simmons and Butch Reed.
yes.
One of the best tag teams of their generation.
Yep.
Then we get a little segment with Jim Ross and Jim Cornette giving us a little recap of the Horseman angle from earlier. Gordon Soley interviews Flair and the Andersons. And then I wrote down, after 6 months of storytelling, Ole is ready to blow this thing off.
Yeah, they put like they had those little pre-taped promos of the guys before they come out.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just me, or did it seem like mid promo Buzz Sawyer for like half a minute forgot what he was talking about?
I think that's pretty much Buzz Sawyer every day. But yes, you're
Yeah,
absolutely
but
right.
in that promo, like he's talking, and then he just goes,
Was Buzz Sawyer
and then he
Sawyer,
starts cutting the promo again. It's terrible.
am I
But
wrong, or was Buzz Sawyer the guy that like was the one that like promised to train the Undertaker and then didn't show up, like took his money and
they
didn't show
fucked
up?
him over.
That's what I was thinking. I wrote down here. I think that's the story, and here they're in the same building on
And
this night.
this is when they met back up, and Mark Calloway is like, "Hey, motherfucker, remember me?" And he even stole his dogs. Like Mark Calloway took his dogs because he was like, "I showed back up and he wasn't there, and he fucking abandoned his dogs." And he's like, "Oh my god, these dogs starve." And he said he had those dogs for like 10 years.
Well, like Jim Cornette would say, Mark Calloway, Buzz Sawyer. Look who won the pony.
Yeah, look who won the dogs.
But yeah, this is the Great Muta, Buzz Sawyer, and the Dragon Master versus the Horseman in a steel cage.
Um, Now we're kind of talking about Dragon Master last week.
Yeah.
What I didn't remember until after we recorded and I read a little bit more. I remember him talking about in his book. You know, Dragon Master had a hand in training.
I do not.
Bret Hart. Because Dragon Master, Kendo, whatever you want to call him, was in Calgary working for Stu, and when Bret wanted to break in the business, Stu put Dragon Master and I can't remember the other Japanese. I don't know if it was Saito or whatever in charge of getting Bret ready, and Bret talked about how he was like the Japanese guy down in the dungeon breaking him in. So this guy trained Bret Hart. That was if that tells you anything about the talent of Dragon Master.
Yeah, and and that's my thing about him watching his career and stuff. I hate to say this, but I'm just gonna say it. Obviously, great worker because, like you said, trainer. He had a long career, and I don't know if it was just because
He came in at the
of
same time as Muda.
well,
For Christ's sake.
I'm not talking about even WCW. I'm talking about just like throughout his career. As I watch him, like I think he was the one that was the ninja in Mid Atlantic and stuff. He just always looked cheap to me. I don't know. I don't mean to be disrespectful because apparently the guy was very talented, but he always looked like sloppy and cheap to me. I don't know. Just my opinion.
Sorry.
But yeah, like I said, this is pretty much just Ole blowing off the booking that happened before him. Because I think Sawyer and Dragon Master, obviously, this is probably pretty much the wrap up for them.
Yeah, Sawyer misses the jam sandwich. That was the name of his fucking move, by the way. The jam sandwich
Also, his favorite strip club.
and breakfast. And it is also the night that Doug Dillinger fucked everything up. Did you know
Elaborate.
that? Obviously we're supposed to be going into Sting versus Ric Flair.
Yes.
And Sting climbing up the cage, Doug Dillinger was out there, and Doug is the guy, like, all the shit's going on. Dragon Master, Buzz Sawyer, Ric Flair, the Horsemen, all this shit. And what fucked Sting up was Doug Dillinger grabbed Sting, not being a worker, and didn't grab him like in a working way. No, he wasn't trying to be malicious, from everything I understand, but just Doug Dillinger sending this guy out that has no idea what he's doing, grabbed Sting off the cage, and when he grabbed Sting, that's what fucked his knee up.
I guess I never heard that story.
Because he grabbed Sting like in a non-working way and fucked his leg up. And Doug Dillinger's the guy that fucked him all up. And put that back like 6 months.
Yeah, I never heard that story. I didn't know that was where the injury happened.
Because if you watch it, like, he comes out at first and he's fine, and by the end of this segment, if you watch the end of the show and the guys are like pulling him back, Sting's fucking hopping like a fucking kangaroo. Like, he's all fucked up. So everything I heard, Doug Dillinger fucked up Sting. But anyway.
But yeah, the Four Horsemen go over. I believe Arn pins the Dragon Master in the end.
It does. I put Anderson got the DDT on DM 1, 2, 3.
And of course, Sting, like Aaron said, Sting is out. The baby faces are out. There's all kinds of confusion. Buzz Sawyer misses the jam sandwich. Arn pins Dragon Master.
such a stupid name for him. I'm on the fence about Bud Sawyer. It's like part of me wants to like him, but part of me's like, hey, fucking joke. But anyway, go ahead.
And that's the end. That's the end of Clash of the Champions 10. So again, I posed the question that I pose at the end of each of these episodes. Aaron, from Clash 9 to Clash 10, did we go down, status quo, or did we go up from the last show?
I think we're in the middle.
Status quo?
Yeah. Because it's kind of like it's like ending some stuff and starting stuff. So we're just kind of like I don't know where they're going. Like I know where they ended, but I don't know where they're going. If that makes sense.
And I think that's why I gave it a little bit over status quo, but very close to what you're saying, because you have a new booker, and again, like I've noted many times during this show, there's a lot of things where you can see where Ole isn't Vince Russo. Ole isn't an idiot. Ole isn't coming into the promotion as the booker and saying, all right, we're just going to reset everything. You know, last week, this was the story. This week, this is the story. All the titles are vacant. Everybody's role from last week doesn't matter. He's an actual storyteller and a smart wrestling booker. So this was, to me, this was a show, and the next pay-per-view is too, which we won't review because obviously we aren't doing pay-per-views in this series. But this show and then the next pay-per-view are Ole slowly resetting things to what he wants the vision to be. So that's why I say it's kind of status quo, but a little bit more, a little bit above, just because it's cool to see I always enjoy the change in a booker. You know what I mean? I always like to see the evolution of what one guy's vision was versus what another guy's vision was. But I enjoyed the show. Overall, I really like this Clash.
Me too. And like you said, it's one of my favorite one night angles, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Tried to buy you some time.
And I just love the fact that Ole just comes out and he's like, look, you're gone, man.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to any of this other stuff.
Any of this other stuff. Like, we're going to kick
emotions.
Your ass
before we get to emotions and feelings
and just everything. Just understand.
I just want you to know you're fired.
You're fired. Like, you're out. And Sting just being like, what? Come on, man. Really? Yeah, it's good shit.
All right. Well, next time around, we are going to go to, I think, South Carolina. I don't remember. I know the next Clash is the Coastal Crush, but I don't remember. I think it's in Carolina. But yes,
Charleston.
we are Charleston, South Carolina. Next week, we'll have the Clash of the Champions 11 Coastal Crush, and Ole will have fully taken over. Yes. We'll see Ole Anderson's vision.
Our main event is Ric Flair versus the Junkyard Dog.
And I love to hear Junkyard Dog. One of my favorite things in the world in professional wrestling is to hear Junkyard Dog say Ric Flair. Because he says, Ric Flair.
One of my favorite things to hear Junkyard Dog is to say that he was at Jim Cornette's house fucking his mom.
Yeah. But anyway. Yes, that'll be for next week. Aaron, any parting words before I give the plugs and we sign off here?
Nope. Just thanks for listening. I think if I
that was very orgasmic Larry Nelson of you. I
got a message when I went to say something. I am nothing like Larry Nelson. But what I was gonna say was, I would like to thank everybody for listening, and I do believe we're picking up some traction on YouTube. If I've seen views and likes and all that stuff, so I appreciate that. And anybody that listens to us on YouTube, give Reliving the Extreme a chance too. That's it.
Absolutely. Reliving the Extreme as we roll through the history of ECW with our buddy Chad Austin. And any time you can reach out to us on Facebook, the WNR Podcast Facebook, the WNR Podcast Network on Facebook. You can join the group, or we just have a page too where I just essentially post the shows that you can like if you don't want to join the group. The group has some fun stuff in it though, so if you want to join the group, go ahead and do that. Of course, as Aaron said, WNR Podcast Network on Facebook and YouTube. You can listen if that's where you prefer to listen to your podcast. Feel free to comment, and you can always email us at wecan'twrestle@gmail.com. I check that email at least once a week. There's not really a lot that comes through the emails, but that's okay too. We appreciate your comments, though. If you have any comments to make in the YouTube page or any feedback on any of our platforms.
And look out, Baron von Raschke.
Aye. We'll see you next week, everybody, for Coastal Crush. Have a great week.